Cyprus is situated in the eastern corner of the Mediterranean, about 40 miles from Asia Minor and the Turkish coast. During its long and turbulent history, it went through periods of great prosperity and subsequent decline. This was particularly evident in medieval times, when the island was captured by the Turks in 1570 and was left moribund for the next 300 years of Ottoman rule. Cyprus remained a relatively underdeveloped country until well into the 20th century. In spite of the improvements that were made during the 90 years of British rule, which began in 1878. The story of the Cyprus Railway starts here as well. Admiral Sir John Hay arrived off Cyprus with a small fleet on the 2nd of July 1878 and landed 10 days later to take formal possession of Cyprus from the last Turkish governor, Besim Pasha, until the arrival from England of Lieutenant General Sir Garnet Wolseley. He duly arrived on the 22nd of July 1878. Wasting no time, he began by introducing some semblance of order into the corrupt and inefficient Ottoman administration by organizing a few essential public services, such as a postal system and 1 or 2 roads to connect the principal centers of the island. The possibility of establishing a railway system seems to have occurred very early on, and its earliest official expression was undoubtedly based on Wolseley's need to provide military rather than civilian communications. But the introduction of railways was, in any case, characteristic of British colonial enterprise. By the 1890s, Cyprus was carrying on a steady trade mainly through the ports of Larnaca and Limassol, exporting produce and importing manufactured goods and raw materials. From the higher reaches of the Troodos Mountains came timber and charcoal. From the hilly regions came fruit, olives, grapes, wine, and carobs. From the lower slopes, the plains and coastal areas, came citrus fruits, grain, some cotton, and vegetable crops. In terms of contemporary communications, a railway was the natural outlet for the promotion of trade, but for the new colonial masters, an ambitious and expensive pipe dream. Over the next decade, numerous studies were compiled, rejected, revised again, until finally, in November of 1903, the British government officials gave their blessing. Cyprus was to have its railway at last. The question of a railway system in Cyprus had always been considered in the context of linking it to one of the ports. On this basis alone, and given that the final choice of port was that of Famagusta, it's logical that the beginning of the story of the railway starts down at Famagusta Harbour, which was inevitably linked to the history and fortune of the Cyprus Railway. Restoration and dredging work on the Famagusta harbour had been proceeding in advance of that on the railway system, commencing in the 1890s. In January of 1904, railway material, including locomotive number 1, began arriving, unloaded at the quayside from the SS Cyprian Prince into rail trucks. A separate railway jetty was built on a stone causeway around the southeast bastion for this purpose. The railway ran up from the harbour, under the walls of the old city, to Famagusta station. And here begins our journey. The first and most important station and railway depot was built at Famagusta, and the railway headed from here westwards towards Nicosia. The station building itself was a simple but impressive 2-story affair, built in sandstone, which housed the normal passenger and traffic offices on the ground floor and the headquarter offices on the first floor. It was approached from the road by a driveway, which ran under a gabled entrance portico built from the center of the building and carrying a clock. There was a long platform at the rear of the station, and beyond that, the station yard. The main railway to and from Nicosia came from the west through a tunnel that had been constructed so as to avoid crossing the Nicosia road on the level, and the harbour line curved into the station from the east. Of the two main buildings in the yard, the workshops were typical of traditional railway structures and undoubtedly the dominating feature that can still be seen today. Construction of the Cyprus Government Railway, as it was officially called, began in April 1904 and consisted of a single 2-foot 6-inch gauge track with passing loops at various stations along its route. The section heading from Famagusta to Nicosia was 37 miles long, running through the Messauria plain. Travellers of those times remember that the train was friendly, noisy and cheap, and made 25 stops along its slow daily route over the plains, hauling people, animals, freight and farm produce. There were no heating or cooling facilities. You either opened the windows or closed them. The Cyprus Railway officially opened for public traffic on October 21st, 1905. The inauguration ceremony took place at Famagusta station with the arrival of High Commissioner King Harman on the first train from Nicosia in much pomp and circumstance, with crowds of people curious to see the first journey of the Cyprus train. By December 1907, a further 24 miles had been added from Nicosia to Morphou in the west. By June 14, 1915, a second extension from Morphou to Evrikou was added, and a distance of 14 miles was completed, making a total mileage of 76. Ironically, and with slight variations, the route of the railway duplicated the partition line of the island that was a consequence of the Turkish invasion in 1974. Hence, for many years, it was impossible to follow the complete line of the Cyprus Railway. Margaret Sessions, headmistress of the Sessions School in Nicosia in the 1940s, remembers.
Every year, in the spring, the station master at Nicosia would send one of his trains to the golf course opposite our school, about a 10-minute walk away. It arrived with flags flying and a loud hoot. The children would all be ready to go and would rush in to get a good seat. Some of the older boys were allowed in the driver's cab to help steam the train. We took a large kettle with us, which the driver heated up for our tea, and we had ample provisions of sandwiches and cakes for all, including, of course, the station master, who always came with us in his best uniform, together with the ticket collector, who never charged a penny, and all the rest of the train staff. Off we set, in the direction of Kythrea, and eventually stopped at a suitable spot for our picnic. The children poured out of the train and soon had blankets and chairs laid out for us. The children roamed around. The boys played football, whilst the girls collected wildflowers. We returned to our station by the golf course, tired but happy, in the early evening. We said our goodbyes to our host and watched the train steam off to the far parts of Nicosia.
From Famagusta, the railway followed a route past the ancient city of Engomi, through the villages of Stili, Gaiduras, Prastion, Pyrga. It stopped for passengers at Yenagra station, then onwards through Vitsada and Musulita. Another stop at Angastina station, on to Exometochi, Epicho, stopping